Hey guys, it's me, Marvel Hero 123, and welcome to this week's episode of the Big Picture Podcast.
Is that what we're going with, really?
That's what we're going with.
Keep it rolling, let's go.
This is it. I'm Rhys, and I'll be today's host. This week we're talking about the next big sports film. My wonderful panel will be tasked with picturing an event relating to sport, or a sporting event which they feel deserved to be the next big sports movie. So, let's meet our lovely panel. He once beat up a massive Russian dude, and against all odds, here is Shettleston's resident hardman, Lewis Jameson. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm excited to talk about sports movies, a very underappreciated element of film, I believe.
Oh, interesting. Well, you are a big sports guy, so this seems like something you'd be right up your street. Are you excited?
Yeah, I can't wait just to talk about Space Jam for the next 6 hours.
Yes, I know you love Space Jam. You haven't stopped mentioning it for 3 weeks. But
it's a catchy song, you know. I don't want to get DMCA'd, but I mean, it's stuck in my head for 3 weeks, man. Come on and jam. Anyway.
Stop. Copyright. Anyway, moving on. Next up, his friends want him to pursue a life in sport, but he wants to pursue a life in singing. And yes, I am counting High School Musical as a sports movie. It's Jack Graham.
Oh, are we breaking free here? Are we soaring? Are we flying?
Yeah. Jack, I've heard many a story about how you could have gone pro in handball if you didn't get injured. Will you be representing the mass fan base of handball community?
I'm sure that they are all watching Eurosport right now on their tellies and can't unfortunately listen to this podcast. So I don't know if my words should be in vain for handball here, but R.I.P. Jack's handball career 2012. I don't know.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. Back before coronavirus weight was put on. I know the feeling. Anyway, our next guest knows every stat about everything. He once got a Major League Baseball team to the playoff final on stats alone. It is the Big Picture's resident Rain Man, Adam Markievich.
Thanks. Hello. I'll take that. I'm pleased with that.
You do love a stat.
I do. I'm a bit of a stats man. I'm a bit of an amateur stats guru, I've been known as.
Yeah. Well, you're also a massive football fan who has some very terrible opinions.
I'm much like yourself.
Exactly. So, how do you feel about doing the next big sports movie?
Yeah, I think I agree with Lewis. It's kind of an underrated category. It's not something that a lot of people ask you. You know, talking about films, no one brings up what's the best sports movie. So I'm glad that we as a podcast can tackle that. You know.
Well, yeah, we are just unique, one of a kind. Then our next panelist today has got some serious anger issues. He was too angry to play hockey, so he had to switch to golf instead. It is Stuart Fitzgerald.
Show me the money. That's a sports movie, right?
Sure. What is sports?
Well, Jack, Webster's dictionary defines sport as a... I don't know. Admittedly, I'm not going to be probably offering much in the way of this podcast, but if I get stuck, I'm just going to go back and keep telling everyone how much I hate The Mandalorian, so that's my safety net.
Stuart, you win all the time. You have come up with some very creative ideas, but this one's a bit out of your comfort zone. So, are you anxious, or do you think you still got it in the bag?
Well, I was anxious until I started taking these steroids, big picture steroids. Okay, if you're stuck in a pitch, just take these 5-10 a time. Doesn't matter. Your skin changes colour, but the good thing is that your muscles don't.
Well, this is the final episode of the Big Picture Podcast.
Continuing the baseball theme.
Right, finally. To get here, I had to come over the border. In doing so, he dropped his football. Despite being shot at by the border police, he went back to get it because he loved football that much. He's fresh from the Backs to the Wall podcast. He is this week's guest, Jamie. Jamie, how are you?
Not bad at all, Rhys. I've no idea how to respond to that, but I was thinking there, hearing the introductions to everybody, and that's a brilliant feature, and one I'm going to definitely have to steal. But that's something else.
Well, it is. Do you know? I think I spent like an hour of my day trying to come up with. Earlier on, I was searching through like top sports movies of all times. I was like going through ones that I'd seen and trying to like think of something relating to everyone on it. So while it is fun, yes, the effort you have to put in is relentless. So take it at your peril.
I appreciate it.
Jamie, before we get into things, why don't you tell us a bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast that one I'm one of the co-presenters on is the Backs to the Wall football podcast. It started off when we were at Stirling Uni. We had the idea for it, but we never actually made it come to fruition, which was frustrating as we had so much free time that it's strange that we didn't. But when lockdown hit, obviously about 8 months ago, we thought we may as well do something productive with our time. And there was 4 of us. Andrew Wright, who lives in the northeast of England, and Seahouses, Scott Morrison from Langham, and Michael Stewart from Belfast. So we just talk about all things football, be it Scottish football, English football, or if there's not very much in the news going on, then we just talk about, I don't know, like a best ever Premier League 11, a worst Premier League 11, or crazy moments in football. But I think it's quite a good, we got quite a good mix. We got the couple from Scotland, and then got the English, and also got the representative from Northern Ireland. So we cover all bases.
Well, that is true. I never thought once in my life that I'd listen to a podcast where they listen to the football opinions of a Partick Thistle and a Sunderland fan, but somehow I found myself entertained.
We literally have to fight back the tears before recording every week.
Well, you're actually kind of used to pitches, it seems, because while we have our big pitches on this episode that everyone knows about, you have your own mini big pitch where you have to vote for a guy who deserves to go to the reserves. So yeah. you're comfortable with that notion then?
Yeah, definitely. It was one of the more last minute things we came up when we were talking about the podcast, and we just thought it'd be a funny thing to if you have a football player who you really dislike, or someone in your team, or a team that you know of who's absolutely shocking and deserves to go to the Backs to the Wall reserves, then you just pitch them and you battle it out against the other presenters. So I love features like this on podcasts, so I'm excited to be part of this one.
Excellent. What are you expecting from everyone's pitches today?
I'm expecting them to be pretty good. I mean, if you were pitching, it would be absolutely shocking. But everybody else is, I'm expecting top class stuff.
Strange that you would say that, because actually I won last week, and I am this week's fan favourite voted person as well. So get up, yeah. Thanks, guys. Great. So. As you guys may remember from the last time we had a guest on in the Batman v Superman episode, instead of the usual pitches and voting, this week the guys were pitching their ideas to Jamie, and he will decide the winner. And maybe he'll send one of them to the reserves as well. Who knows? The idea for this episode was brought to us by a fan. So thanks, Stefan, for suggesting that we do a sports-related episode. So we asked you guys as well this week to tell us what some of your favourite sports movies were. And, well, I should have them up. Let me just check. Oh, look, I had them there the whole time. Ryan said his favourites were Longest Yard and Rush. Thanks, guys. Grant said basketball. The Old Museum podcast.
Basketball.
Well, I'm sorry, but that is what that says. So go fuck myself. The Old Museum podcast, great guys. Give them a shout out right now. They said Green Street or Slapshot. Michael said Talladega Nights. Alan said Dodgeball. And Lucy said High School Musical. And Stuart, yes, I know I don't have Twitter, but I did see you squeeze in one there about England's 1966 World Cup. That's just not an accurate representation of me.
I was just doing what you messaged me to do, and I can't do right for doing wrong.
Honest to goodness. They cheated their way to victory. Cheated. Anyway, that's an episode for another day on a different podcast. So, let's get into the episode. The first question I have for you guys, nice and easy one. What's everyone's favourite sports movie? I'll come to you first, Jack, because you're the only one with no mic muted.
I wish I didn't come to me first because I don't know. I think that I probably would have to say my favourite sports movie is Dodgeball. It's not taken too seriously, and I think that the cast plays it off really good for the comedy side of it, and it's just really great. I find that a lot with sports movies, I find it hard to enjoy it. I don't know why, but like adding that comedic side to it and making that comedy film, I think it's top tier, and I can watch it over and over again and not get bored.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great film. A lot of funny quotes from it. So I'm assuming then you would probably like Happy Gilmore as well, stuff like that.
I do like Happy Gilmore, but I can get fed up of that film at the same time.
Well, that's one that's been overplayed to a very high extent. Right, next I'll come to you, Jamie. As our guest today, our sports expert, we're expecting something brilliant here. So what's your favourite sports movie?
You know, it's going to sound so strange for me to say, but sports movies, I've never been the biggest fan of them.
I mean, what's the point of having you on then?
Yeah, I know exactly. But I was going to mention Happy Gilmore, but I can completely understand why it gets a bit. I don't know, you can get sick of it after a while because I've seen it quite a few times. But I remember I watched a few years ago, $1 Million Baby. I thought that was pretty good. As well.
Underrated classic. That is a classic film.
It's a good film.
Probably a little bit too serious for the feel at the minute, maybe. But yeah, well, Happy Gilmore was going to be mine, but Dodgeball again has to be right up there. That's a good watch.
Excellent. Well, when I was researching earlier on to do the intros, like I said, I put in top sports movies all the time, and I think $1 Million Baby was like number 5. So no shame in picking that one there. Lewis, you are a fan of $1 Million Baby. What else do you like?
It's no shock that, obviously basketball is one of my first loves, so I do genuinely love the film Space Jam. But there's another basketball film, there's actually a few that I think need to be watched, and one of them is a film called He Got Game. It actually features an NBA player, Ray Allen, whose name in the film is Jesus Shuttlesworth. Yes, that's right. Jesus Shuttlesworth.
I'm already on board.
It is a classic film directed by Spike Lee, famous New York Knicks fan. But that's an underrated classic. But probably my most watched film out of sports is either Rocky 3 or Never Back Down, which is an MMA film.
Interesting that you didn't mention Coach Carter there. You talk about basketball and bring up Coach Carter. What's the
I
song?
don't class that as a sports film. I know basketball is there, but I count that as more of a like High School Musical. Sorry, Lucy, not a sports film.
Well, I'm not having this. You can't come in and tell me that Die Hard is a fucking Christmas movie, and then tell me that Coach Carter isn't a basketball movie. What are you talking about?
The lesson there isn't about sport, but yes, I would agree. Coach Carter is there, but to me that Coach Carter, while it is in the realm of sport, it's so fucking brilliant that it elevates beyond the kind of sport movie genre. I think it kind of moves itself into its own kind of dramatic telling of, an ethnic minority youth experience during the mid-2000s.
That's what you mean. It's a good point, but you're probably wrong. But that's not what today's episode is about. So, Adam, tell us, what's your favourite sports movie?
I think my favourite of all time is probably Remember the Titans. I don't know how many have seen that, but I think that's such a good one because it's based on a true story and it's such a good tale of the kind of troubles with racial desegregation at the time. And just, it's got a really good story, a great cast as well. I'd say I like a good fiction film as well. I like Happy Gilmore, Dodgeball. I think they're two I'd probably have to have right up there. Funnily enough, as a football fan, the only football film I can really think of, sports film, is probably like Goal, which is obviously great, all the Goal films. They're good. But I can't actually think, I could think of a few bad ones. I remember watching...
Beckham.
I remember reading a series of articles that were like bad football films, and it was like a One Shot at Glory. Is that it? Is that the one with Alan McCoist? I can't even remember.
Oh, I
but
don't know.
there's
I've
one
seen
with
that.
Alan McCoist where he so get this, where his character is meant to have, for some reason they decide he's played for Celtic, so they show goals he scored for
Oh.
Rangers, and they've changed the colour of the kit to green. Genuinely, that is a thing.
That is horrific.
I need to watch this. I need to
Jesus.
watch this.
I'm gonna find
man.
it and I'll tell you the name of it in 2 seconds.
Right, while you do that, Stuart, you can tell us what your favourite sports movie is.
I'm going to go against the grain here and say I like sport comedy films as well. They're probably my biggest exposure to sport films, like Dodgeball, Talladega Nights, and everything. The Mighty Ducks, which is a true classic. I love that film so much. It's such a good feel-good film. But I suppose if you want a proper answer, Rhys, then it probably is Remember the Titans. That's probably the biggest proper sports film I saw first, or Rush.
Yeah, another great film. Stuart, I'm actually a bit annoyed that you brought up the Mighty Ducks there because I love the film as well, obviously. But I had in my head I was going to make your intro a Mighty Ducks reference about drink driving and having to coach a ice hockey team, but I totally forgot about it and then until you said it there. So that is quite sad. Right, Adam, hit us with the news.
I shot at Glory. I was close.
Shot at
but
Glory.
I've just put and sadly the viewers won't be able to see this, but I'm about to put a picture in the chat of Alan McCoist wearing a Celtic shirt.
Well, maybe we can post that on Instagram.
Yeah, on Twitter.
It's just the greatest sports movie of all time.
See, if like if I wasn't going for like a comedy, oh my god, it's a terrible picture. If I wasn't going for if I wasn't going for a comedy movie, I'd say like my favourite kind of serious sports movie is Invictus.
Oh,
Yeah, that was one I was thinking of too.
It's a good film.
Right, guys.
Shout out Cool Runnings, which we haven't mentioned.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cool
they're
Runnings. Oh, John Candy's amazing in that.
I think the problem I have with sports movies is I've actually seen so many that I forget about them. And then when you're talking about the best sports movie, I'm like, oh, I've got a few that I like. But then you say stuff like Cool Runnings and the Mighty Ducks. And these are like, I watched the Mighty Ducks earlier this year and I'd still forgotten about it. So I don't know. Anyway.
The more this conversation has gone, the more movies start creeping in my head of all some of the greatest ones we've seen. And it's just
Ali.
yeah, exactly.
Southpaw.
Ali,
What
Southpaw.
was that one where Will Smith does the Nigerian accent? Concussion.
Yeah, Concussion.
That's a good movie. It's a terrible accent.
Wild Wild
but great
West.
movie.
Oh god.
The Express. That's another one I want to chuck in there. If anyone's ever seen that.
Rudy. Rudy's a good one. It's an American football film.
It's enough. What kind of sports movies do you like, guys? Because we've had quite a variety here. Do you prefer fiction or non-fiction when it comes to sports movies? Anyone?
Fiction. I think it's more enjoyable. It's a more enjoyable story for sports. I think in a movie that's told in a fiction sense rather than non-fiction, because again, it's just that for me that the sports movies are better when they're funnier.
Right.
I think it's easier to relate to a fiction-based sports movie because the story often told is one more relatable to your average person. Like, for example, Moneyball. It's not like I can relate to being a statistician for an MLB team and creating the best, cheapest team ever. But if you throw in, like, I don't know, Rocky 1, where somebody can realize they're an underdog and kind of, make their way to the top, that's a bit more relatable in a very shallow sense.
It's interesting that you brought that up because that's kind of where I was leading my question to go, because Moneyball is by far my favourite sports movie and you've just shat on it. Because Moneyball is so good. I can't believe you would say it. I know it's not relatable, but neither's Happy Gilmore. I don't get angry when I play golf.
You've not seen me play golf.
Yeah.
I play golf for friends. That's enough to know.
Moneyball's a great movie, but I mean relatable as in, like, I'm never going to be hired by the New York Yankees. Like, I'm just not. But in terms of a concept...
Don't get yourself out yet.
Don't turn yourself down like that.
Hey, if any New York sport teams are hiring, give me a shout. I could use a job anyway.
Right, guys. We kind of talked about it slightly before. And obviously, Jamie, we know your favourite sport is football. Do you have any other sports that you like?
Yeah, I quite like tennis. I do that well. In Scotland, the weather's often horrific, so it's often pretty difficult. But yeah, Oban has a few courts, so in the summer months, usually go down with one of my other pals, Gregor Bryden, who you know well, Rhys, and have a few hits with him. But other sports like sort of rugby, etc. I've never been too into it. I'm horrific at golf, but it doesn't usually stop me from latching on to a few of my pals that like to go to some of the local courses. But honestly, I can only use a pitching wedge and a 9, and that's about me.
I'm too bad for golf. People don't even invite me. I'm that bad. They've never seen me play, but they know I'm bad. Adam, what kind of sports do you like?
I think outside of football, of which I'm a massive fan, I don't really enjoy rugby. I don't particularly watch golf either. I actually quite like when you brought up handball. I actually sometimes do watch Eurosport, and I like to enjoy handball. I don't know, they used to show on Eurosport. They used to show on Eurosport beach soccer.
Actually, on the pod, that's what it is.
I don't know if anybody's ever caught the beach soccer they used to show, because that was amazing. That honestly, I used to love that. I used to come home from school and that was always on for some reason. In terms of like sports, I'm maybe outside of football, probably more of an esports fan. I know Rhys. I know you're also of the same mind. A big fan of watching RLCS.
Yes, Rocket League in the Olympics.
I'm looking forward to that. I have to say, that will be
that'll be good.
Your house to watch
of course.
Yeah, okay, cool. Sort.
Well, I've never watched the beach soccer, but does anyone here remember Masters League football?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that was brilliant. that was top tier. Jamie, I'm sure you were a fan of Masters League, surely.
Yeah, I've just come back. I've just unmuted my mic there to come back in. I love Masters football. They need to get it back on. I think lockdown would have been the perfect time for them to really start showing loads of episodes of it, but it's a missed opportunity there, certainly.
Masters football. I've asked to come back a lot during this lockdown. Bring back Dream Team. That's what the people want. That is what the people need. We need a fictional reality-based football team again, where folk die after getting hit off like a peg in like a cloakroom.
Yeah, he's brought that film up. That series. He's brought it up like so many times the last few days, and every time the only thing he talks about is a guy died off a coat hook. And I remember watching YouTube, and I know that happened, but I feel like there was more to it than that. Why is that the only selling point?
Because if I told you that a footballer died after getting pushed into a coat hook, you wouldn't want to watch it.
In goal, where Santiago Munez is in the changing rooms and he takes this inhaler and he drops it on the floor and a guy stamps on it. That's just a scene that happens in the movie. It's not something you talk about all the time. I feel like there's more to this series, and I just don't want to watch it based off this one thing that you keep bringing up. You brought it up the other day when we were playing GTA. You brought it up the day before that as well. You've not sold it to me, Jack. I'm sorry. It's not coming back.
Well, that sounds like your problem, not mine.
Well, you can suck it. What sports do you like?
See, I'm quite weird with it because there's a lot of sports I like playing, but I don't like watching. But there's sports that I like watching, not playing. For example, I like watching rugby, but I hate playing. Also, if you'd seen my size, you'll see why I hate playing rugby. But
because you're massive and you crush everyone.
A man can dream. I like when I was at school, I played badminton and volleyball quite a lot, but I hate watching that on the telly. So I'm quite weird about it.
Right. Thanks for not answering my question, Lewis. You actually are quite different to everyone else. We're all talking here about ball-based sports, but Lewis, tell everyone what kind of sports you like.
Well, just to get it out of the way, like basketball was my first dream. Like I wanted to turn pro, I wanted to do all that kind of stuff. Like I used to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning to go work out before school to play basketball. But life goes on, and I found myself falling in love with combat sports. So boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, anything that involves hurting someone, I will watch it. Other things that I quite often watch, again, these guys will know because it's things I'm into. things like strongman, powerlifting, any sort of strength-based sports. I watch rugby. Six Nations is probably one of my favourite times of the year. Aside from that, yeah, combat sports, strongman, rugby, yeah, stuff like that.
When you wake up in the morning and you're about to leave the door, do you go keys, wallet, phone, glass of testosterone? Is that what goes through your head?
Actually, right, funny story. Obviously, everybody here, apart from Jamie, will know I'm from the Shetland Islands. So I was a bit of a weird guy because, as Rhys kind of alluded there, I would leave the house. I've got my school bag, I've got my phone, got my wallet, and I needed to take my basketball with me. I would take it no matter where I went because I would try and play after school. I would try and play before school during lunch break. Anytime I could get a chance to, I wanted to play basketball. So, yeah, Rhys, I do leave the house with a bottle of testosterone because I fuck shit up.
Well, that's great. I'm happy for you. You're like the most American person I know, and I know people from America.
Yeah, my girlfriend's American as well. I'll probably out-American her.
Yeah, probably. And you voted for Trump. Stuart, what kind of sports do you like?
Sent a mail-in vote. Voter fraud. Look into it. Biden should be president.
Shut up!
We've still got a couple hours left. My favorite sports. I quite like Formula One. I quite like tennis and rugby as well. I actually prefer to watch like big sporting events more than like usual leagues and matches. So like I wouldn't watch the Premier League or Scottish rugby, but if the World Cup or the Six Nations are on, then I'll catch as many matches as I can. Like the same goes for the Olympics. I love watching it from open to close. I remember in 2012 people complained about how it was on every channel, but I loved it. There was always something to watch and cheer on for. I think that's a bit why I like Formula One so much. Like every race seems like a big spectacle, and you fool yourself into thinking that, but then nothing happens in every race.
The first 10 laps are exciting, and then after that, it's just the same. It's just guys going round in a circle.
Unless you're Roman Grosjean, That's it.
Oh, well. Or Kimi Kobayashi.
Exactly.
He likes a good comeback.
Formula One of those things where if you watch the whole circuit, nothing will happen, but the second you go away, there'll be a crash, safety cars out, and you're like, oh, that's it.
I missed it.
You're like, damn, I'm so bad. I feel so bad for them, but also you're like, missed it.
I really like Formula One. I watched it all the time before it moved to Sky, and then I just kind of stopped watching it as much, which is a shame because I really enjoyed it at the time.
It's almost
right.
like when they put a pay barrier in front of products, people no longer want to get it.
I still watched it when it moved to Sky.
Aye, because you're... Never mind, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
I watch your tongue there. Aye.
Jamie, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that just before Rhys moved down to Paisley, he basically tried to start his own pro kabaddi team in Oban.
Why are you telling people that? That was a secret.
What happened, Rhys?
I left that. Basically,
why did the dream die?
I was thinking, I really like Formula One. I think I could be the next Ayrton Senna. And I really want to die in a car crash. So I'm going to start...
a nice low dream for you to attain.
We're going to start a driving club where we all practice like crashing into each other. It's like dodge jumps, but with real cars. Police came to my door and said, you obviously can't do that. And then that was the end of my dream. But thanks for baiting me out, Jamie.
Have you ever seen Pro Kabaddi?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I just thought because you said you had Sky there. It's on at like 2 a.m, and it's a new Indian. It goes on in India and Bangladesh. It's a sport where they like hold hands and they have to like whisper kabaddi, kabaddi, kabaddi whilst trying to like play tag with each other.
What the actual...
How would you know? How would you think of that? Yeah, everyone will get this reference and it'll be so funny.
Well,
it sounds like it's up Adam Street, I think.
It sounds,
why is it only
I was
2 a.m?
I was going to say it sounds like this is a very niche audience for your podcast, Jamie.
I was actually thinking about splitting off from my own one and just starting my own Pro Kabaddi
podcast. That was brilliant.
This is recruiting pitch. That's what that is.
You heard it here first.
Targeted audience. Indian and Bangladeshi people. That's brilliant. Right. Well, the reason I was asking you all what your favourite sport was, and now we know that Jamie's favourite sport is pro kabaddi, is because I was wondering if you guys think, and I'll come to you first, Jamie, because I'm not sure there are many pro kabaddi films, but I was wondering if you think that you're more inclined to watch a sport movie which is specific to your favourite sport.
I don't necessarily think so, because I mean, I do like Goal, but as you said before, Bend It Like Beckham, when they tried to do that, it's quite poor. It's quite a poor film. And I can't think of too many football films apart from maybe Green Street, which is more based on just football violence, that I like. I tend to sway towards sports that I don't actually usually watch. So no, I don't think it's restrictive to the sports that I actually really like.
Does anyone think that they will only really generally watch films of a sport that they enjoy?
No, but
Probably not. No.
Yeah,
I
would say.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say that the reason I would say that I don't necessarily watch as many football films as we talked about, like probably just goals that I could think of, is probably because you think of the shots and stuff of like them playing football, and if you've played a lot of football, you've watched a lot of football, it just, you kind of see it and it screams in your head like unrealistic, or you can't believe it.
You become overly
critical.
critical.
Is so bad when you watch sports movies, and another thing that a football movie, sorry, and another thing that really kind of frustrates me is just how unrealistic it is. You kind of watch yourself, and it's like there's always, if you watch a football movie, sorry, there's always a 90th minute winner, and that is the reason that I'm just.
And there's always an overhead kick as well. You can't miss it. Yeah.
The Rocky movies are quite bad for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Rocky always wins.
Yeah,
and I like to have seen one where he
doesn't always win. He loses.
The first one, he literally doesn't win.
Yeah, the first one he loses, and Balboa he loses.
Oh, Rhys doesn't know his sports movies.
But it's more like, I think if you're watching a sport movie but something you follow, you become too critical of it. Like when I watched Rocky, and obviously, I've trained in MMA and boxing, and that you watch, he's like, that punch would never land. That's too obvious. That's not how you'd move. Oh, Hulk Hogan's going to military press Rocky Balboa and throw him out of the ring. Yeah, that's going to happen. And you just become cynical about it. When you watch a sport you don't really follow, you're kind of ignorant to the niche part of the sport, so you just kind of enjoy it for what you're being presented.
So, Lewis, and before I come to Stuart here, I just wanted to ask you then the opposite of the question. Do you think that you'd be more inclined to watch a sports movie on a sport that you don't really know much about and you don't enjoy that much?
The key for that would then be the quality of the story. And the best example I would give, and I've raved about this film to you, and I will tell everybody to watch it, is Foxcatcher. I wasn't really a fan of amateur wrestling, and I still really am. I'll watch it time to time. Amateur wrestling as an Olympic wrestling, sorry, I should maybe give it a proper term, Olympic wrestling. The story told in that film hooked me that wrestling became like the side story. It was just unimportant. But
like Coach Carter.
Yeah, I guess so. That the kind of the sport becomes the background to the story that's being told.
And High School Musical.
Nope. To me, like I messaged Rhys about this when we're talking about boxing, about a boxer called Inoue who's like just lighting up the ranks right now. That sport is a unique methodology for telling a story, and you can see it either taking place in the game, and when it comes to a film, the film has to decide whether or not it tells a story through the sport or through the actors. And I think if you focus on the actors, then you're going to get a better film no matter what sport you pick. And I would still be inclined to watch something, even if it wasn't really my particular interest.
Yeah, I mean, that's why some of my favourite sports movies are Moneyball, which is I've said already is my favourite one, and 11 Men Out, which is, or 12 Men Out, I can't really remember, which is another baseball film. And then, as I said with Stuart earlier on, Mighty Ducks, ice hockey, but I would never sit down, unless it was in America and I could go to the game, I would never actually sit down and watch those sports. Mm-hmm. Stuart, what's your thoughts?
Well, my thought is that I think Lewis is talking about wrestling when he's been an Olympic wrestler. I think that's the technical term for it. But anyway,
some wrestling. That's not good wrestling.
I think, a counter to Lewis's point, I think it's easier for me anyway to watch a sports film like where I know the rules of the sport, like it's a sport I'm familiar with, like because I don't watch baseball or basketball movies because I only know the bare minimum about the rules. and I don't have to pause every time I need to look up a rule or a foul. That's something that immediately takes me out of it because I don't have the prior knowledge. That's a big thing about sports movies is sometimes they are too niche because they don't take the time to introduce new audiences to the rules.
That is a very good point. But I find myself watching these movies, like I said, these baseball movies. I don't know the rules. I don't know the lingo, but the story is so good. So Moneyball is about how you can use tactics and have like players, like all the experts are there, and they're all saying, these guys are the guys we get. These are the best players that we can afford. And then they're like, no, we'll get these scrubs, but because they're good at this one specific thing, and we'll use that and we'll build a team around people who are good at specific things. And then with 11 men out or 12 men out, I really can't remember it because, like I said, I don't know how many players are on a baseball field. But that film is about in the early 1900s where the team rigged their way, they took a bribe and they threw the World Series, and it goes to court and all that, and they all get banned for it. But the reason they did it was because their chief executive wasn't paying them enough money and they wasn't giving them any. So the stories there are brilliant, and that's what draws me in. Like Lewis was saying, and like you kind of said, but you kind of said that you don't know the rules, so you wouldn't watch it. But these are great films with great stories. So I feel like you're kind of missing out if you're not watching them.
But that's all well and good, Rhys. But what's all the little gestures in baseball? What do they always do? These little hand motions. What do they mean? It's like he's pointing at something. I don't know what he's talking about.
No idea.
They're calling the type of pitch. The hand movements called.
You don't know that, Lewis. You're not an official pitcher. They could be saying anything. They could be. Are we still on for dogging tonight? I don't know what they're talking about. Neither does anybody else.
We're actually all official pitchers. Big pitchers.
Boo! Get him out! Fuck off! We actually addressed that in the film, though, Stuart, to be fair. Like you said, they never take the time to do that for the new audience, but they do, because at one point he does one of those dodgy hand gestures like he's in the Freemasons, and then it comes up, because it's like, I said I want a fast pitch, and you threw me a hard ball, or something like that, and I'm like, I have no idea. Maybe he didn't know either, that was the problem. He didn't throw, he just didn't know.
Maybe.
Right. So we've established that you don't generally need to watch a film that's exclusive to your sport, your favourite sport. But guys, someone mentioned earlier, I can't remember who because I don't really care about any of your opinions, that sports movies are a bit niche. When was the last time any of you actually watched a sports movie?
That's a very good question. It's a very good question. It's one that I can't answer because I don't know.
Jamie?
Yeah, same for me. It will have been Happy Gilmore, but I literally think it's probably gone back a couple of years. I'm not one to stick on a sport movie all that often, and yeah, it's poor, but that's the way it is.
Lewis,
Last week.
Adam, Stuart, if any of you watched one this year?
Yeah, I've watched a few this year. I watched one last week. Like one of my favourite films is Never Back Down. It's a kind of a MMA style film, one of the first ones that came out that actually did it well. I watched it last week. It's one of my favorites. It was added to Netflix. I was like, you know what? I'll throw that on. I watched it. I watched Creed 2 recently, and then I think I watched what's it called? The Jackie Robinson baseball film, 45. Is that what it's called? Yeah, 45.
Well, we're all nodding right now because we all agree that is what it's called.
I think
Stuart, when was last time?
It was on Amazon Prime. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, no free ads. Stuart, when was the last time you watched a sports movie?
I was going to say I watched a sports film this year, but then I forgot it wasn't 2020 anymore. So no, I haven't watched a sports film this year.
What was the film you watched?
It was Rush.
Wow, great film.
It was. I've been wanting to watch it for ages. Another thing about sports movies is the last time I sat down to watch it was only because it was available on Netflix. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to watch a sports movie unless it was already on a streaming platform or on the telly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all watch Cool Runnings when it's on BBC One. Not me though, because I actually don't use BBC TV licenses, guys. Don't come for me. I don't use it. I don't use it, guys.
Nice save. Yeah, nice save.
Right, so question, and I'll come straight to you, Adam. Are sports movies underrated? Because, like we've addressed, there's definitely been some classics.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of I'd say almost like ignorance about them. I think a lot of people who maybe aren't interested in sports or aren't as interested in sports, so say maybe I don't know they follow football, but they wouldn't want to sit. They do that's what they do on a Saturday. They don't care about the rest of the week. They're not necessarily going to sit down and watch a film about sports because they're not that interested in any other sports. I think a lot of people would just have that kind of blanket attitude of, well, I don't really like sports, so why would I like that film? What I don't like golf. Why would I like Happy Gilmore? And I think because of that, people don't watch these films. They don't talk about them when there's as we've discussed already. You don't necessarily need to know, unless you're Stuart. You don't need to know the rules of a sport or know anything about it to enjoy these films. You know, you can enjoy Dodgeball. I mean, it's got a pretty simple set of rules, and they do explain it. So to be fair, but you can like enjoy Dodgeball because it's such a good film and it's so funny. I just think that there is a sense of people who just have a blanket like, I'm not interested in sports. I don't watch sports movies. And that's why it probably doesn't get the kind of coverage it deserves.
Like, I think sports movies are a bit underappreciated, purely because the attachment of sport almost kind of tries to seem like you dumb down the art of making films. But then Sylvester Stallone goes and wins an Academy Award for his role in Creed 1. Like, there is the ability to tell fantastic stories and really give actors a chance to explore their own capabilities in films. And I think because the word sport is attached to it, the Hollywood snobbery, for lack of a better term, kind of shuns them and kind of pushes them to the side and just, I'll forget about them. That's for, like, you know, the Sunday afternoon movie that appears on Dave or whatever channel shows movies these days. I don't know, I don't watch TV. But they're kind of shunned because of the attachment to it, and then Hollywood have their own snobbery attached to their own filmmaking processes, and it's kind of shunned as a result. But I mean, we can all name classic films that we absolutely adore and love and tell fantastic stories that are just kind of underappreciated.
Lewis, you're not wrong. And Adam has said as well, sports movies that are underrated. But Jack, what I want to know from you is there a sports movie then, if they're all underrated, is there a sports movie that comes within the top 10 movies of all time?
I don't know. I would. No, I don't think so. But I don't. It's maybe as cruel as it is to say.
Look,
I don't really
Jack,
care enough either if it is or
the
not.
answer is no.
Right, that's fine. I was going to say I don't care enough either if it is or not. I was trying to be nice about it. Like, I don't think it should be.
The answer is no. Like,
the answer is no. And really what I was alluding to is they can't be that underrated because they don't hold themselves. And Lewis was saying, it makes a good point about the Hollywood snobbery. And I think we can all agree that is probably true. But they can't be that underrated if there isn't one that can hold itself up with the best movies of all times. So that was really what I was hoping to do, Jack. You just kind of needed to say no.
No, there you go.
Say no.
No.
No. Switch them around. Right, thanks. Right, let's move on to the pitches. So, as I said earlier, we've got a lovely guest on today, Jamie. And he is who the guys will be pitching their ideas to do. So the ideas that they're pitching are the next big sports movie. So they have to take an event relating to sport or a sporting event, and they have to pitch a movie around it and say why that deserves to be the next big sports movie. I've also added in the twist that they need to have a lead because I need to know who's going to play that character because that's important. So, Jamie, are you excited? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm excited. There's been some good things said so far, so I'm expecting good things. There better be something about Partick Thistle.
So, Jamie, are you then expecting a pitch about how Christy Elliott put the ball in the Airdrie net?
Well, I mean, that would then be at the top of the list of. Oh well, it'd be number one in the top 10 movies of all time. So you're a billionaire if you get that on board. Or on the flip side of that, if Alan Archibald's lead character again, you've won the pitch today. So,
guys, I'm hoping one of you have gone for either Christy Elliott or Alan Archibald's story because You guaranteed wins.
That is exactly what I have in my pitch.
Oh, well, Lewis, funny you should mention that. Fire away. Tell us your pitch.
So I had two ideas in my mind for my pitch, both of them relating to my sport, so I'm probably going to lose this anyway. But I thought about doing a Kobe Bryant style Last Dance film, but during my research for this, it turns out Kobe Bryant actually hired a camera crew to follow him for his last season, so we're going to get that anyway, so I'm going to bother with that. But my idea for my sports movie is to make a movie about the first UFC event in 1994. The idea would be similar to like a Rocky film, but the concept of UFC at the time was very Mortal Kombat-esque, where it was who had the best style, who's the best fighter, what kind of worked. So the origins of the UFC, I found a very rich man who decided to make a tournament, and the idea was to find out who had the best fighting style. Was it wrestling, karate, judo, sumo, kickboxing, and so on? And my protagonist and the hero of the story is the guy who won the tournament, Rhys Gracie, a 6'1", 175-pound Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. It was told that the Rhys Gracie family are very well known in MMA, in the Jiu-Jitsu realm, and Rhys Gracie was purposely chosen because he was the smallest, the weakest, and the worst of the family. So he was kind of kicked out and supposed to go do this event. The tournament starts off with a former sumo wrestler. By the way, this is all true story. This is all fact. A former sumo wrestler, whose name I can't pronounce, versus a Dutch karate star. The fight went about 20 seconds, where the sumo wrestler charged the karate guy. He circled away, kicked him in the face so hard his tooth went into the fourth row. Everybody in the background of the event went silent because they realized this wasn't just some pro wrestling event. It was actually for real. Rhys Gracie fought 3 times in the night. First against a guy called Art Jimerson, who was a middleweight Golden Gloves champion, former super middleweight contender, light heavyweight and cruiserweight contender, boxing with a record of 33-18. Rhys submitted him just about 2 minutes of the first round. Art gave up because he had no idea how to fight. Funny story about that fight, he fought it with one boxing glove on. Just one glove, underwear, and nothing else on. Second fight was Royce versus Gerard, the guy that kicked the sumo wrestler in the face, put his tooth in the fourth round, and choked him unconscious within 2 minutes, completely dominating a man who was terrified from the opening minute because people are starting to realize that Royce was the real deal. Finally, and Jack will know this name, hopefully anyway, if his memory on pro wrestling is about. The final fight of the night was Rhys Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. Ken was one of the favorites of the tournament, a very decorated wrestler, but also a pro wrestler who was, as The Rock once said, very legit and would not be messed with by anybody in the back. So after, Ken was touted to be, the best wrestler, the best fighter, and was supposed to be this all-time pro. So kind of like your Rocky kind of story where you have the underdog coming against this highly touted individual. Royce shoots for the takedown. Ken handles it easy, being the well-trained wrestler he was. Royce pulls off to the side, scrambles and shears, and he gets him with an arm bar, and Ken taps out in about a minute. He shakes his hand and he walks out the cage. The Gracie family are synonymous with MMA, so my story is to tell that in more of a Rocky sense, where you keep the facts, because obviously they are the facts. Royce being the underdog, the cast out of the family, coming in and showing what he's worth, and completely dominating the tournament and walking out. But I have a question for you, Rhys, because I want to get a qualifier for who I could cast as a lead. Now, are they alive, young, or current? So basically, could I pick someone now, or could I pick a younger version of someone who's still alive?
Well, when Jack asked this question the other day, I said to him, Jack, it would be quite difficult to pitch the next big sports movie with someone that was dead. So that's your answer.
So we're going to go alive. So I have 2 picks, and there's the 2 of them. So I'm going to float them out there, and then I'll pick one just so you know what I'm thinking about. My lead for Rhys Gracie would either be Pedro Pascal, which is kind of convenient considering we talked about a Mandalorian, or, again, convenient, Oscar Isaac, who is in the Star Wars films, plays quite a convincing role there. So that's my 2 for Rhys Gracie. And as for Ken Shamrock, I have no idea. He could be played by Ken Shamrock because he's still fucking huge.
You only need a lead, so you're all right. But you have to pick one. I'm not allowing you to have 2.
Right, I'm going to go with Oscar Isaac because I think Pedro Pascal probably couldn't really do it. It's a bit too athletic. Sorry, Pedro.
He's not got the facial range anyway. That's why he has a mask on. Lewis, loved it. Great idea. You know when you're talking about the 3 fights in one night? That reminds me of the story of, let me get this right, George Foreman,
Mm-hmm.
and he sat, is it Muhammad Ali in the front row?
Yep.
Nailed it. So he gets him, Muhammad Ali, in the front row. He fights 3 guys. I think it's more than that. I think he fights like 6
It was
fights.
a guy around, I think. He did like 6 rounds or something.
Yeah, he does like 6 fights in the one night, and the whole time Muhammad Ali's going on. This is after Muhammad Ali had beaten George Foreman, so George Foreman's feelings were hurt. So Muhammad Ali sat in the front row and he's giving it like, right, come on. He's like cheering on the other guys, and then when it gets to the 5th fight, he's like, right, no, come on, George Foreman, you can do it, you can do it. And George Foreman's like taunting Muhammad Ali the whole time. Then it gets to the 6th fight, he's like beating up the guy. He looks to see what Muhammad Ali's saying, and he's left. That's a great boxing story.
That's a legendary boxing story, yeah.
I enjoyed it. What did you think, Adam?
I liked the picture. It's got one question for Lewis. Like, it could be an important one in terms of like age certificate for the film, because some of the scenes you've described are quite brutal. Are they going to lean into that? Is it going to be quite gritty and realistic, or is it going to be just a tiny bit toned down? So maybe make it a 12 rather than a 15. What's your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I would like to keep it at 15 because there is some real story to be told. But you could you can go and watch the event. Most of it's actually on YouTube, if not UFC Fight Pass sponsor. But I think you could probably get away with it being a 12, just not show too much blood. You could just show, the traditional kind of way where the camera cuts away, or you do one of those really crappy, like, move the camera really quickly as it lands, so it makes it seem like it's actually hitting harder than it actually was. I think you can get away with a 12, and you can kind of keep the general audience around, so you can kind of treat it like a Rocky film.
Jack or Stuart, do you have any thoughts?
I think you've got to keep Ken Shamrock as Ken Shamrock.
To be honest, no one could play. I have racked my brain about this for about 4 or 5 days. I can't think of anybody that could play Ken Shamrock except from Ken himself.
Mate, he's still going in Impact Wrestling, so it needs to be Ken Shamrock.
He is. If anybody doesn't know who Ken Shamrock is, Google him in 1994 and then Google him now. There's not much of a difference.
Right, Jamie, you're the one whose opinion matters. Did you like it?
Yeah, I really did actually. I had no idea about that story at all. I'm not big into my UFC, but that's sort of goes back to one of the points you made earlier, Rhys, is that it's a sport which I don't take much to do with. But I think literally listen to that. I would definitely watch that movie.
Oh.
So this is a pretty good one, guys.
That's a good one off the bat, guys. And Lewis, I've done you a solid because Jack Graham's going to share his screen right now. He's going to spin the wheel. But I just thought you deserve to go first, Lewis. So I thought you went last time, so you deserve to go first this time. So Jack, share that screen.
Get it up.
Mate, I need to get this all set up again. Literally, when you took Lewis's start and I closed down the bloody thing.
Did I tell you to close it down? Did I tell you to?
I thought you were just an idiot and forgot. Because you're an idiot.
I won't lie. I 100% forgot until halfway through. I was deciding who was to go next, and I went, wait a minute. I would normally have this decided. So there was obviously a reason, and I found out what it was. Jamie, have you already decided that you're going to vote for Lewis? Will we just save the pictures?
No, I'm expecting big things, as I say.
Oh, gosh.
So it's still all up in the air.
Jamie, on your command, tell Jack to spin the wheel and he'll do it.
Spin the wheel.
That's not it! You spin that wheel!
Oh!
That's me. Hey.
know what your pitch is.
Right. Now, I've shot myself in the foot here, as we've talked about, and I've talked about, maybe not watching as many football sports films as other sports we talked about. We were like, what's better? And I thought, that's why I've chosen a football event for mine, because I'd like to bring it back. I'd like a really good football sports film, and I'd like it to be non-fiction, and it's going to be a sports event that's quite close to me. It's not close to Rhys, particularly far away from Rhys. And it's the Rangers winning the 1972 European Cup Winners' Cup.
Next.
Now, just note that one of these I've chosen this. I've got a bit of a personal connection to this. Some of the people on the podcast know it already. She's been mentioned already. My girlfriend Lucy is the granddaughter of the Rangers manager who won the European the Cup Winners' Cup, Willie Waddle. And so I'd like the film to be centred around the viewpoint of Willie Waddle. As for who's playing him, I decided Luke Evans after extensive consultation with his family. That Luke Evans would be the best choice. So that's locked in. Perhaps the best likeness of any suggestion for who's playing a lead, but not for me to say. And for this film, I would also not just cover the run at the final, but also a defining moment in Willie Waddle's Rangers career, which was the Ibrox disaster, which occurred in 1971. Anyone not familiar, it's a stadium disaster that caused the death of 66 fans. It's something that changed Scottish football forever. And Willie Waddle was actually the person who designed the renovations for Ibrox, which is still standing today. And it's the exact same way. Well, the exact same. I'm sure they've changed a few seats since then, but it's very much the same design as it was when he changed it. I'd like the film to run a kind of parallel narrative between the aftermath of the Ibrox disaster, which caused huge division until Willie Waddle pulled the Rangers board together and led the call for safer stadiums in Scottish football, and also, as I say, led the design in the new stadium for Rangers. And then I'd run that parallel to the journey for the Rangers team at the final. They beat some of the best teams in Europe. They beat the Bayern Munich side, which won the European Cup 3 seasons in a row, and also beat Sporting Lisbon, which is a very controversial tie, as they won the first leg 3-2, lost the second leg 4-3 in extra time, and they would have gone through in away goals, but the referee got confused and decided to do a penalty shootout, which they lost, and then they found out after the game it actually went through. It's something, and that's one reason why I wanted to cover Rangers' run, is because a lot of people, even Rangers fans that I know, don't know much about it, just because of the time period. There's not necessarily a lot of material released. I think it's something that's important to Scottish football. I think all the European triumphs that Scottish teams have had are very important, including Celtic and Aberdeen's respective European trophies. And I just think that for the film's finale, we could see the cup final played out in thrilling fashion. Rangers won 3-2, and in the last scene, I'd like to see a rejuvenated Ibrox welcoming the trophy home. The bus, the open top bus with all the players piled on holding the trophy. And I just think it would tie the story together very well if we seen the trophy come home to an Ibrox that's been renovated. It's now safer, it's modern, and it ties together the two greatest achievements of Willie Waddle's time as a Rangers manager.
Just one question there. Who did you say the lead was?
Luke Evans.
Luke Evans. Oh, that's all credited to Luke Evans. That's good. Right. Excellent. Terrible story. Not interested whatsoever. Anyone got any thoughts? Sure. I'm sure you're buzzing to give your thoughts on this one.
Definitely. Actually, it's a good pitch. One thing I don't know if you actually covered this in your pitch, Adam, so sorry if I'm being a prick. But is this so the stories about Rangers season that year also covering the Ibrox disaster, or is it mainly the Ibrox disaster and then like the resurgence of the stadium afterwards?
I think I'd like them kind of running alongside each other. So they're kind of different times. The Ibrox disaster happened in 71, but the aftermath did spill over into this season. So it's maybe something the kind of poetic license in that you don't necessarily have to have the timeline. It's not necessarily that important. I think just showing the two different kind of sides of it, of what was going on in the background, which makes the European run all the more impressive that this was happening. I think having those two narratives kind of alongside each other, I think would work quite well.
Lewis, Adam, I just want to say before going, it's actually a really good pitch. I know I'm hating on it, but that's for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Lewis, I'm not going to bother coming to you because I actually know that you don't care. So I'm just going to go straight to Jack here. Jack, you're a Rangers fan. What's your thoughts on this?
I liked it. I think it's something that deserves to be documented. I'm a bit surprised that it's Luke Evans that's being cast as Willie Waddle. It's not an actor that I would ever not that I'm saying it's a bad choice. It probably is a good choice. I don't really know much about Luke Evans, but it's just I'm surprised that he's ultimately the one that is went for. But good nonetheless.
Luke Evans. You don't know much about Luke Evans. He was in
Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit stories, and
IMDb.
IMDb.
But
Pembrokeshire Murders.
I know he's in like the Fast and Furious stories and that, but I'm surprised that like that's the actor that it went for. It's like, he's in big movies, but it's not like a big actor you'd.
He was just in the
Beauty and the
Pembrokeshire
Beast.
Murders.
Yeah, he's got a really good reason I chose him, Jack. If I could just jump
It's
in.
not a
Just
big
as well.
club, so they need a small actor. That's why.
Good point.
But
Very good point.
I'll just jump in because Jack makes a good point in this question into maybe screen presence. But I think if you see the side of him, especially in things like the Pembrokeshire Murders, the kind of, and also when he's Bard in The Hobbit, the kind of strong leadership style he's got that he can portray really well. I think that's something that Willie Waddle always had in his career. It was something that was very important. He was the boss. Everyone knew him, and I think that would carry across really well.
And one final question for me: will you be getting Ali McCoy to play for Celtic in this?
No, I think I'll keep them all playing for their respective clubs. I think that.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
good idea. Jamie, as a Partick Thistle fan, does this offend you?
So when I heard the first sort of 15 seconds of the pitch, I just put my pen down and I wasn't going to write any notes. It was a straight bottom of the pile one for me. But no, see, actually, as it went on, like I like the connection with your girlfriend, and then again when it went on to the eyebrows as well, it's quite it's quite poignant as well that it goes on to then they lift the trophy as well at the end. So it's quite a good story. I actually, if I didn't despise Rangers so much, you'd be certainly my chance. But
well, you know,
you Adam.
When I wrote this pitch, it was something I thought I could go for a safe one. My other one, which maybe not a safety, but like I'm also, because my dad's from London. He actually grew up near Highbury, as we all know. He's from London. I support Arsenal as well, so I would have gone for the Arsenal Invincible season, which I grew up during. But I felt this was something that I was quite passionate about, and I do think, having read a lot of material on it recently, my girlfriend's mum, obviously Willie Waddle's daughter, she lent me a book on his time at Rangers, and I didn't know before I read the book all this stuff, and I thought this was actually quite important, and I thought, you know what, Partick Thistle fan, probably going to lose, but I think it's important I got it out there.
it is good, I have to say, and also the stuff about the penalty shootout, I had no idea about that.
Just another example of the referees giving Rangers what they want. Just typical. I've never associated the Ibrox disaster and the Cup Winners' Cup. Well, I've never associated them two, even though they're only a year apart. So to bring them two together was actually, I thought, was quite good. Anyway, Jamie, redeem yourself. Get Jack to spin the wheel.
Spin that wheel.
That's better.
It's spinning. It's red and blue. It's hideous. Jack Graham.
Oh, it's me.
Right, Jack.
I'm going to pitch about Aaron Muirhead moving from Partick Thistle to United.
You know, we may as well just, depending on how this goes, you may as well just stop now. You've won, Jack.
I'm kidding. Just some light humour for the chat, everybody. Just some light humour for the chat. But my actual pitch is going to be.
I'd already written down his name.
The movie is going to be called The Legend of Lay Elephants, and the movie is going to be around the qualification of the Ivory Coast squad going into the 2006 World Cup. Now you must be thinking, that's weird. Why is the story going to be based around this? It's because when Ivory Coast qualified for the World Cup, it ultimately ended the civil war that was happening in Ivory Coast at the time. That started from 2002. So the whole point was that there was this. The president's government was controlling the south side of Ivory Coast, and this rebel faction known as the New Forces of Ivory Coast were controlling the north, and this rebel faction continually sent like people of their faction going to like different towns and cities and like invading it and trying to control it as theirs, because there's a lot of political unrest of how the country should be ran in Ivory Coast at the time. So that's a lot of what's going to be told in my story. But obviously, as I said, there's the president and this faction. So I've had to cast two people. The president I'm going to have is Morgan Freeman, and the rebel leader I'm going to have is Michael B. Jordan. So most of the movie we're going to see the kind of rebel faction, Michael B. Jordan trying to gain control of these southern side cities in Ivory Coast. But during this time, we're going to see more and more people start to watch the qualification process of Ivory Coast getting to the final. And the key theme that we see through it is the minimal engagement, and then kind of the full nation coming together to cheer on their squad to get into this World Cup. And then we'll see kind of their last match was against Sudan, whilst Cameroon versus Egypt's playing at the same time. And we're going to see from the viewpoint of the president and this faction leader of them both wanting Ivory Coast to qualify, because they're kind of realising that this is something that can bring everyone together. And then the closing scene of the movie is going to be the interview of Didier Drogba in the changing room. I've got the speech up here that he says. It's quite good. It's men and women of Ivory Coast, from the north, south, centre and west, we prove today that all Ivorians can coexist and play together with a shared aim to qualify for the World Cup. We promised you that the celebrations would unite the people. Today we beg you on our knees. The one country in Africa with so many riches must not descend into war. Please lay down your weapons and hold elections. So from that point, it'll kind of start to fade to like folk in Ivory Coast get along better. And at the very, very last scene, there's going to be a table. You're going to have Morgan Freeman as the president, Michael B. Jordan as the rebel leader, talking about the victory of Ivory Coast getting into the World Cup, and then ultimately getting the kind of peace negotiations to end the civil war that's happening during that time. That's my pitch.
That's a wonderful pitch, Jack. I've got a couple questions. Are you going to have, like, when you watch like sports movies that are like based on real stories, and then they have like in the end, and since then Michael B. Jordan, I don't know what the faction leader was called, Michael B. Jordan has gone on to do this. President Morgan Freeman has gone on to do this. Didier Drogba has gone on to retire. Are you going to have that at the end? Because I would like that.
Yeah, it's going to have like, so where how long the president was in presidency, what's happened to the rebel faction leader, then obviously talk about where the squad's at as well, and what's happened in Ivory Coast since that point, and how they've got more peaceful.
Yeah, and one other question: who's going to play Didier Drogba?
Well, the thing is,
you didn't need to have anything for that, but I'm desperate to know.
I'm not. It's just going to show that clip, that interview from Didier Drogba thing. So it's got like, you're not actually going to be recreating the matches. You're just going to be showing highlights of the matches during the film. Then that's going to be it. And it's going to show that interview.
So you're not going to have Childish Gambino play Didier Drogba? I
mean, if you want that to happen, maybe we can make it happen.
I think that would benefit you a lot here. I like it. It reminds me of like Hotel Rwanda, so I'm a big fan. Adam, what's your thoughts?
Actually, I was gonna see when he first started. I was like, Hotel Rwanda with footballs. That was the first thought I had. But just a logistics question here. Famously, Nelson Mandela also operated as a mediator for African civil wars that were taking place at the time, including the Ivorian civil wars. Will you cast Morgan Freeman as Nelson Mandela also, as he's played him in the past, to have two Morgan Freemans on screen?
As well.
No.
Fair enough.
Nelson Mandela will play himself.
He's not dead.
That's just the Mandela effect, guys. You think he's dead, but he's not actually.
That just never came into my. That's not really the story I was wanting, because they did go into like the president and the rebel leader did go into negotiations, so to speak. So I wasn't wanting to kind of go down that route. I was wanting the story of the Ivory Coast itself for their leader and the rebel leader to speak. That's what I wanted it to end on.
Stuart, what's your thoughts?
I really like it. That's a really, really good pitch. Also, I have just one potentially fatal flaw.
Oh no.
Morgan Freeman played the president in Deep Impact. Would this confuse audiences at all by him playing a president in this film?
There is no cinematic universe of presidency for Morgan Freeman, Stuart.
Oh, that's a good answer.
You just lost a vote.
That's a bureaucratic answer. Right, Jamie. Massive football spat. Oh gosh, massive football fan. Got your own football podcast. We've got a football-related movie here. What's your thoughts?
That was brilliant. You know what? Brilliant. I would love to watch a film like that. See, just I like my history as well, and I know it's not that long ago, but I don't know too much about it. And I'd love to see the impact that football had in stopping that civil war. And it's just such a great story. I also love Morgan Freeman as well, so that really adds to it. The fact you're a Rangers fan slightly puts it down a notch, but other than that, that's it. Honestly, I would pay top dollar to go to what's a good cinema.
Wow.
To see this.
Open Phoenix Cinema.
The Open Phoenix Cinema, yeah. Open Phoenix Cinema to see that film. Definitely.
TV cinema that goes around in a van, Jamie, that takes you to all like the rural places, like the cinema on wheels.
That'd be my desired location, definitely. Hire that out.
Stuart, Jamie's clearly a big fan of that. He's also a big fan of Lewis's pitch. He liked Adam's pitch, but he hates Rangers. So, please tell me it's not a Rangers team pitch, and more importantly, do you want us to spin the wheel?
I'd like you to spin the wheel, yes.
Right. DJ, spin that shit. Round.
Where's it going to land? Is it going to land the black line?
I hope so.
It's not going to be the black line. Oh, it's Stuart. Right, Stuart, fire away.
Right. I don't know how I'm going to follow that pitch, but here goes. So my pitch is going to be a bit of a biopic / docudrama, which will be about the 2006 Ivory Coast Civil War. It's set in 2006, but at an equally an event that's rivaled in its size by this potentially. It is about the 2006 Brazilian Grand Prix. Fasten your seatbelts. There you go. So the big thing about this race is that it was Michael Schumacher's last race in his first Formula One career before he retired and then came back to race for Mercedes, which was nowhere near as successful as his first career. And then after he retired a second time, he obviously was involved in a skiing accident, which has sadly left him severely debilitated, which is a real tragedy. But lately, I've heard that his conditions is continuing to improve, so that is good news. This race in that Formula One season was the final race, and it was pretty much the decider for the winner of the 2006 championship, so there was a lot riding on it. Before the race, the standings were that Fernando Alonso was 10 points ahead of Michael Schumacher and would win the championship unless Schumacher was able to get first place and Alonso wasn't even going to get any points. So that's the big hurdle in my movie that Michael Schumacher, who will be played by Michael Fassbender, needs to overcome.
Choice.
Thank you. So you've obviously got the big end of an era theme, which will be a major part of this story. But the big point to make is how much of a technical and racing prowess Schumacher had, because this guy was a legend, and this is the perfect race to show it. At the start of the race, there were a couple of collisions, which doesn't allow him to make much progress because unfortunately he's starting in 10th place. But as he's making his way round the circuit, and eventually seems like he's making actual progress, he gets a puncture that by the time he's finally able to pit and sort it out, he's all the way down in 19th place. And everyone is thinking that it doesn't look like he's even going to make it into the top 10, never mind a podium finish, which he needed. But what he does is he climbs his way all the way back up from 19th place, which is pretty much last, all the way up, not just to the top 10, but he manages to finish in 4th place, so close to the podium. The race was won by Felipe Massa, who is Brazilian. And before then, the last time a Brazilian had won their home Grand Prix had been Ayrton Senna, who was one of the best Formula One racers in history, who sadly died in 1994 during the San Marino Grand Prix, and he was a friend and inspiration to Michael Schumacher, so I think he would have been happy with the final standings regardless. But if you ask me, that's the greater victory of Schumacher managed to go all the way from 19th up to nearly finishing the podium, because at this point Michael Schumacher's won 7 championships at this point. To finish a race in such style, to say that you gave it your all and overcame so much, is pretty much a perfect metaphor for not only his career, but his life. And I think the audience would see just how hard he will work to get there. So that's my pitch.
Sure, I love it. It sounds like the Piston Cup all over again. We're lighting in between. He's not feeling it. His head's not in it. Doc Hudson comes on the mic and says, "Bro, you've got to do this." And he gets all the way, but then there's the crash, and he leads the king. Oh, I can't remember who it was. The blue guy, from Dynaco. He leads him to it's just a heartwarming moment, and I really like it.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going for. The Cars fans.
Anyone else got any ideas, Lewis?
Well, like, to come from 19th to 4th, like, for people who don't really watch Formula One, even to make up like 1 second of a difference is a monumental effort. To make that much of a difference is just a signal to the skill that was him as a driver. But Stuart, I do have a question, and perhaps this has been ruined by like the Fast and Furious. Is your movie going to feature that really shit motif where the driver just seems to have 15 different gears and is constantly changing up and down and just finds that secret gear that makes him win?
No, I think like the best perspective to have is, rather than focus on like the mechanics of the car, is to keep that ticking clock. I always feel like there's no better way to put tension into a film than a ticking clock. And I think from going to the despair, like showing the pit stop that, this is it, it's his last race, and he's not even going to be like, this is it, like that's just not his fault, but he's not going to be able to put on that show of that flourish of performance. And then they gradually see that he moves up and up and up and up. I feel like that's kind of the perspective to take rather than that high octane action-oriented gear change stuff, because I don't think that Formula One might seem like that from the outset, but from inside, it is all about the seconds.
Oh, 100%. I'm kind of glad you answered that way, because I think Formula One gets a little bit of disrespect as a sport because it just seems like car go fast. But there is a lot of skill and adding that tension with the ticking clock. I think, that's a good way to have the tension build and actually give an anxiety to want to watch the film and almost like make you want to root for Schumacher as if he's actually going to win. Obviously, it's a history film. We know he's not, but that ability to suspend the belief to make us feel like there's a chance. I like that.
Stuart.
Yes.
Is this the time for a Michael Schumacher film? I'm asking you this for a couple of reasons. One, we obviously don't know the outcome of, if he's really getting better or, if it might be time. And two, Lewis Hamilton has just broken the record for most wins or whatever it was. I can't remember. Is it the time for a Michael Schumacher film?
Regarding the timing, obviously with the injury that he's suffering from, we don't know too much about it. But again, to bring in with the Lewis Hamilton, the whole point of the film is that he doesn't win the race because the victory is not part of the equation, really. He's trying to get there, but he ultimately doesn't win it. Lewis Hamilton, for better or worse, is largely uncontested in these Formula One seasons. Whereas if you put him in the same situation, put him all the way down to 19th place, I don't think there would be that kind of technical ability to shave off so many seconds to come back from nothing all the way back up and make your way all the way up the podium. I feel like that's the story to tell about Schumacher overcoming that. He can overcome like any setback. He can overcome it, and that's true the same to his illness as well. Like, this is a horrible accident that he suffered from, and he is still suffering from it, but he is slowly overcoming it. Like, he slowly overcame coming from 19th all the way up to 4th.
Well, that's a very good answer. Adam, what are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking, I really like it. I also think it gets me a bit nostalgic for when Formula 1 was a lot less car-based and was more about skill. You bring up Lewis Hamilton's wins, Rhys, and, I'm not saying Lewis Hamilton's a bad driver. Obviously, he's not, but we all know, as people who enjoy F1, that it is a lot more about the car you drive now than it is about the skill of the driver. I'm not saying he's an unskilled driver, of course not, but I think that's one of the reasons why I like this pitch from Stuart, is that it takes me back to that era where you could really see the skill of Schumacher and the skill of all the drivers at the time who maybe didn't have this huge technological advantage.
Yeah, I agree. I remember, but it was like probably the start of the 2010s where Sebastian Vettel was, winning most seasons. Then Lewis Hamilton just kept getting a better car and a better car and a better car, and now he's just winning all the time. So I do agree. Jamie, I don't know if you've got a love for Formula One. I know you've got your love for your hide and seek for Indians and Bangladeshis. What's your thoughts on the pitch?
Well, the pitch itself is brilliant. I don't have a particular love for F1, but having said all that, I think it makes for a fantastic storyline. I mean, I know obviously I don't follow it very much, but I know that obviously 19th to 4th is fantastic, especially when you got a puncture. So it would draw in. I reckon it would draw in people who don't necessarily just love F1, and also the fact that he doesn't. You'd be watching it, and in your head you were thinking, oh, if maybe you didn't know it was a true story, or you're thinking, oh, he's going to win. He's going to win this. Yeah. And then he finishes 4th, so it makes it real, and it makes it, I think it's very good. As well with a couple of collisions as well, I think you can make them bigger, and it would attract that other audience of real action. That could be as well. I really liked it.
It's a good thought.
But yeah, so for me it was another very, very good pitch, and yeah.
Excellent. Right. Well, Jamie, as we all know, it's your decision who this week's Big Picture champion is. So, do you want to tell us the pictures that you liked but didn't quite make it, or do you want to go straight in and tell us, break everyone's hearts?
So, I've basically been doing a scoring system. I was going to do it out of 5 at the start, but then I've decided to go out of 10.
Oh my gosh.
In the end. So basically, for Lewis's one at the start, again, UFC not a sport that's close to my heart, but one in which I would definitely watch that movie. I think it was fantastic about the underdog coming back, and also about the different styles as well, to find out which style was going to be the best. It was a great story. I gave it 8 out of 10. I thought it was very good.
That's huge.
I'll take it.
It was good. Then moving on to Adam's one about the non-fictional football movie about Rangers surrounding their that cup victory and the Ibrox disaster. Again, I thought at the start it was a poor start, but really it did get better. And I even not liking like Rangers or whatever, I tried to put that aside, and I would certainly watch that film.
No, you wouldn't.
I didn't.
You would not.
It's good though as well with the story as well in the background about the manager who has a good impact on how to make the new adaptations to the stadium a lot safer than they were as well. There's a lot going on in this story, so in this movie pitch. So I give it a 7. I give it a 7 out of 10.
Still very strong.
I appreciate that.
Then moving on to Jack's one about the Ivory Coast getting 2006 World Cup. That was just, that's brilliant for me. Everything that I love movies. I loved Hotel Rwanda. So, and as I said before, it's like Hotel Rwanda with a football. But ending the Civil War, they are kind of bringing everybody together. It's just like, it's a true story, which makes it. I love in movies. Sometimes I'll switch on a movie I haven't done any real research into, and it comes up at the end saying that how it was based on a true story, and I'm like, wow, that was brilliant. And that's exactly how I would feel watching this movie. And I would certainly, if I had the money, I would be commissioning that to be made. That's a 9 out of 10.
Oh.
9 out of 10. Do you know? I just want to put this out there. Jack's never seen Hotel Rwanda. He doesn't know what Hotel Rwanda is.
Really?
I've never seen Hotel Rwanda. No.
It's very good.
For the pitch, to be honest.
And then going on to Stuart's one at the end again, about the 2006 Brazilian Grand Prix. I liked a lot about this one. Schumacher coming back is a great story. You could make a lot about that race in the film. Build up the tension, bursting the tyre, the collisions, and Schumacher as a driver himself. Everybody knows how fantastic he is. So it's not surprising that he manages to get up there to 4th and get himself almost onto the podium. It's also a good point as well, but it was Felipe Massa, wasn't it, that won that race in Brazil. It's got a lot going for it. Perhaps because it's not 100% up my street with it being Formula 1. I gave it a 7.
Oh, on par with Adams.
I'm happy with that. I'll put that
What's
in the
wrong with
poster.
that?
That was a good thing.
Discussed.
No, I didn't mean it like that.
These are honestly every pitch. It was really good. I would genuinely watch every film that was pitched here. And yeah, the standard was top class.
So you're not going to send any of them to the reserves?
Well, I mean, I still think Adam still crunches it.
I was expecting a minus 100 because it's a Rangers film. I was going to come in.
No, it was good as well. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that.
Well, excellent. Jack Graham, this week's Big Picture champion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hard work, perseverance. A lot of those kind of awards can get you a Big Picture award. It certainly got me that today.
Jack, it was a really good pitch. I think we can all agree that was very strong. And, Stuart and Adam, they were trying to, put in some things that might try to take them down because that's how strong it was.
It's better than my other suggestion of a Tiger Woods comeback movie, so...
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Jack said to me he was going to do either Tiger Woods or the Ivory Coast one. I went, Jack, I would go for the Ivory Coast one. That's definitely a better story. So I'm glad you went for that one. What's your thoughts, Jamie?
I was going to say, Rhys, that before obviously we started recording the podcast, you'd messaged me saying that you knew some of the pitches that were going forward, and you're interested to see my thoughts on who I would pick. What was how would you have ranked that?
How would I rank the 4?
Or how do my rankings go in comparison to how you thought it was going to go, or how you would have voted?
Put Adams last because I don't want to see that, and I think that's just a bias. I think it was a good pitch, but I just wouldn't watch it, so I don't want that to be the next big sports movie. Then I would have gone for Stuart's one because I know the story, and I am interested in it, but Lewis's story was very unique, and I'd never heard that story before, so I would want to watch that. But Jack's one is just a different level, so I think that's the same. Or you put Adam and Stuart at the same level because you didn't want to put someone last. I get it, but yeah, I think the same. I think you've done a great job, Jamie.
I've slotted in well.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'll let you plug your podcast one more time.
Yep. Well, all I can say is that if you're on the way to work, you're driving back from work, you're in the gym, just stick it on, give it a chance, and you never know, you might like it. Backs to the Wall podcast.
Of course, do so after listening to the Big Picture podcast. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jamie, for being a terrific guest, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time where we do the best rom-com of all time. See you later.